Here's what you need to know about my brother. Tyler Utley makes $350,000 a year as a corporate attorney, drives a Range Rover that costs more than most people's annual salary, and measures his entire self-worth by the price tags attached to his possessions. He lives in a glass and steel monstrosity on Lake Travis, throws parties designed to impress rather than entertain, and has spent the last 15 years treating me like a cautionary tale about the dangers of not prioritizing wealth. Here's what he doesn't know. I'm a Rear Admiral, lower half, in the United States Navy, commanding a carrier strike group that represents more firepower than most small nations possess. I make decisions that affect thousands of sailors, coordinate operations across multiple time zones, and hold security clearances that would make his corporate NDAs look like grocery lists. And I drive a 2004 Honda Accord with 187,000 miles on it. Not because I can't afford better, but because when you spend your professional life commanding a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, you learn that true power has nothing to do with what you drive to the grocery store. Tyler has never learned this lesson, and honestly, watching him try to impress people with his toys while having no idea who I actually am has become a form of low-stakes entertainment that makes family gatherings almost bearable. Almost. The invitation came via text on a Tuesday afternoon while I was reviewing operational plans in my office at Naval Base San Diego. Lake House weekend. Bring swimsuit. No kids. Adults only. This Friday to Sunday. I stared at the message for a long moment, already hearing the unspoken subtext. Don't embarrass me. Don't talk about your boring Navy job. Don't remind my friends that I have a sister who chose service over salary. My aide, Lieutenant Commander Patricia Wells, glanced over from her desk. Everything okay, Admiral? My brother's having a party. The lawyer? The one who thinks he's important because he represents pharmaceutical companies in contract disputes. Are you going? Probably. It's been 6 months since the last family gathering. My mother will guilt-trip me if I don't show up. You could always tell him what you actually do for a living. That would solve the condescension problem pretty quickly. I smiled. Where's the fun in that? The pattern had established itself early. Tyler had gone to law school, joined a prestigious firm, and built a career defending corporations with more money than ethics. He'd chosen that path deliberately, not because he loved law, but because he loved what law could buy. The house, the car, the boat, the watch collection, the wine cellar, every possession carefully selected to signal success to anyone watching. I'd gone to the Naval Academy, served on destroyers and cruisers, commanded at progressively higher levels, and built a career around competence rather than compensation. I lived in base housing when deployed, rented a modest apartment in San Diego when stateside, and drove a car that had been paid off for over a decade. To Tyler, this meant I'd failed to monetize my potential, failed to understand that success meant visible wealth, failed to play the game correctly. Our parents had reinforced this worldview through years of subtle comparisons. Tyler just bought another investment property. Tyler's firm made him partner. Tyler's taking his friends to Aspen for the weekend. My promotions were acknowledged with polite nods. My deployments were met with vague concern. My achievements were mysteries that didn't translate into dinner party conversation. When I made Captain 06, commanding officer of a guided missile cruiser, my mother had said, "That's wonderful, dear. Tyler just made senior partner. Isn't it nice that you're both doing well in your own ways?" When I made Rear Admiral at 43, a rank achieved by less than 1% of naval officers, Tyler had been in the middle of closing a major deal. "Congrats on the promotion thing," he texted. "Can't talk now. About to make $2 million in fees." The thing is, I could have corrected him. Could have explained that the promotion thing meant I now commanded billions of dollars in assets and thousands of personnel. Could have mentioned that my base pay as an 07 was actually quite good, and that decades of careful investing had built me a portfolio that would have impressed even Tyler's wealth-obsessed friends. But I didn't, because Tyler didn't want to know. He wanted to believe his narrative, that he'd chosen wealth and success, and I'd chosen service and struggle. And I'd learned that people who need you to be unsuccessful rarely respond well to evidence that you're not. Friday afternoon, I loaded a duffel bag into my Honda's trunk and started the 3-hour drive to Lake Travis. The car ran like a dream. I'd maintained it meticulously, changed the oil religiously, replaced parts before they failed. It wasn't pretty, but it was reliable. Kind of like the Navy, actually. The route took me through hill country, past vineyards and ranch land, the kind of Texas landscape that looked like it should be in a commercial for trucks or whiskey. My phone rang through the car's ancient speaker system. "Admiral Utley," I answered using my rank because it amused me to do so when no one could hear. "It's Wells. Just confirming you're back Monday at 0900 for the Joint Chiefs briefing prep?" "Confirmed. I'll be there." "How's the family gathering?" "Ask me Sunday night when I've survived it." "Godspeed, ma'am." I hung up and continued driving, thinking about the absurdity of my situation. In a few days I'd be in Washington briefing senior military officials on carrier strike group readiness and strategic positioning in the Pacific. But this weekend I'd be treated like the family member who couldn't quite get her life together. The cognitive dissonance was almost poetic. Tyler's lake house came into view around 6 p.m., 3 stories of modern architecture perched on a hillside overlooking the water, all glass and steel and deliberate design. The circular driveway was already filled with luxury vehicles: 2 Mercedes, a BMW, another Range Rover, a Tesla, and my 2004 Honda Accord. I pulled up behind the Range Rover and killed the engine. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see people moving around inside. Tyler's friends, all dressed in expensive casual wear, all holding drinks that probably cost more than my monthly car insurance. Tyler appeared on the front steps before I'd even gotten out of the car. He was wearing linen pants and a designer polo, the kind of outfit that screamed, "I'm wealthy enough to dress down expensively." "Brittany, you made it!" He hugged me briefly, then stepped back and looked at my car. His expression flickered. Disappointment, embarrassment, something like pity. "Still driving the Honda?" "Still running great." "Yeah, but," he gestured vaguely at the other vehicles, "maybe you could park it behind the garage? We've got people out on the boat dock, and the view from the water." He trailed off, the implication clear. "Your car is embarrassing me." "Sure," I said, keeping my voice neutral, "behind the garage." "Thanks. I know you don't care about this stuff, but some of my friends are pretty particular about aesthetics." I moved the car to the back of the property, parking it next to the garbage bins and lawn equipment. The symbolism wasn't lost on me. My vehicle, like me, was something to be hidden from view. When I returned to the house with my duffel, Tyler was already back inside, surrounded by his friends. A man in expensive boat shoes was saying something about investment portfolios. A woman with a Cartier watch was laughing at something on her phone. My mother appeared from the kitchen. "Brittany, oh good, you're here. Tyler was worried you'd backed out." "Just had to move my car." "Yes, he mentioned that. You know how he is about presentation." She squeezed my arm sympathetically. "Maybe after this weekend we can take you car shopping? I'm sure we could find something nicer within your budget." "My car runs fine, Mom." "I know, dear, but Tyler's friends are very successful people. It might be nice to fit in a little better." I smiled and didn't respond. What could I say? That I just coordinated a multinational naval exercise involving 6 countries and 12,000 personnel? That I'd been offered a staff position at the Pentagon but turned it down to stay in operational command? That fitting in with Tyler's friends was about as important to me as their opinions on carrier-based aviation? The weekend unfolded exactly as I'd expected. Tyler held court, telling stories about his legal victories and expensive purchases. His friends discussed their investment properties, their business ventures, their designer wardrobes. I spent most of Saturday on the dock, reading a book about naval strategy while Tyler's friends jet-skied and drank overpriced rosé. "What do you do again?" asked one of Tyler's law partners, a man named Blake who'd already had 3 glasses of wine. "I'm in the Navy." "Oh, like administrative stuff?" "Something like that." "Must be tough living on that salary. Tyler mentioned you're still driving a 20-year-old car." "It's only 20 years old, still has good life left in it." "That's a very positive attitude." He patted my shoulder like I was a child learning to cope with disappointment. "Good for you. Not everyone needs luxury." I smiled and returned to my book, which was about asymmetric warfare and force projection. Blake wandered off to discuss his vacation home in Napa. That night at dinner, catered, naturally, because Tyler would never cook for his own party, the conversation turned to cars. "I'm thinking about upgrading," Tyler announced. The Range Rover is fine, but I test drove the new Porsche Cayenne Turbo. Incredible machine, $160,000, but worth every penny. Do it, urged Blake. Life's too short to drive boring cars. What are you driving these days, Brittany? Asked another guest, a woman named Victoria who managed a hedge fund. 2004 Honda Accord. Silence. The kind of silence that follows when someone admits to a social faux pas. Oh, Victoria said carefully, that's very practical. Does it even still run? Asked Blake, genuinely curious. Barely, Tyler said, laughing. He wasn't being cruel. He genuinely thought he was making a joke, lightening the mood, helping me save face. I keep telling her to upgrade, but you know how stubborn she is. Everyone laughed politely. Poor Brittany with her ancient car and her stubborn refusal to prioritize nice things. My mother jumped in, trying to help. Brittany's always been very sensible with money. Not everyone needs expensive cars and fancy things. True, agreed Victoria. My housekeeper drives an old Honda. Very reliable cars. I was being compared to the housekeeper. Excellent. The thing is, I said carefully, I spend most of my time on Navy bases. Not a lot of need for a luxury vehicle when you're deployed. Right, your Navy thing, Tyler said dismissively. How's that going? It's going well. Still doing the same job? More or less. Must be nice having that stability. Same job for years, steady paycheck, very safe. Safe. He thought commanding a carrier strike group was safe. The irony was stunning. Sunday morning I was packed and ready to leave by 11 a.m. I'd endured enough condescension for one weekend and wanted to get back to San Diego, back to my actual life, where my competence was recognized and my choices made sense. But Tyler insisted on one last gathering before people left Bloody Marys on the dock, a final opportunity to enjoy the lake view and the expensive boats. I carried my duffel to the back of the house where my Honda waited patiently among the garbage bins. Several of Tyler's friends were heading to their cars too, the weekend winding down. Blake appeared beside me, looking at my car with unconcealed curiosity. This thing really still runs? 187,000 miles and counting. That's actually impressive. Honda reliability, I guess. He walked around to look at the license plate, then frowned. Wait, your plates say military exempt? Yes. What does that mean? It means I don't pay for registration, gas, or insurance. Military benefit for certain ranks. He was reading the plate more carefully now, his expression shifting from curiosity to confusion. Hold on, this says, what rank is this? Other people were gathering now, drawn by the conversation. Tyler appeared, drink in hand. What's going on? He asked. Blake pointed at my license plate. Tyler, your sister has military exempt tags. You said she just did administrative work or something. But these tags, they're not for regular service members. You have to be pretty senior to qualify for this. Tyler looked at the plate, then at me, his expression uncertain. I don't understand. What does that mean? Blake pulled out his phone, typing quickly. I'm looking this up. Military exempt plates in California are only issued to... He stopped, his eyes widening. Active duty flag officers. Generals and admirals only. The silence was immediate and absolute. That can't be right, Tyler said weakly. Brittany's not a... She doesn't, quote, she doesn't pay for gas, insurance, or registration ever, Blake said slowly, his voice carrying across the driveway. Other guests had stopped, listening now. These plates are issued by the Department of Defense. You can't fake these. And the benefits that come with them? He looked at me with new respect. You'd have to be a big shot. Real big. Victoria stepped closer, studying the plate. The number sequence indicates Pacific Fleet. And that designation? Oh my God. What? Tyler demanded. She's a rear admiral. Victoria's voice was quiet but clear. Lower half, 1 star. That's 07. That's a flag officer. Tyler's drink slipped from his fingers. It hit the pavement and shattered, ice and tomato juice spreading across the driveway like a bloodstain. My mother had come outside, drawn by the commotion. What's happening? What's wrong? Mom, Tyler said hoarsely, did you know Brittany is an admiral? A what? An admiral, in the Navy, a flag officer. My mother looked at me, her face pale. Brittany, is that true? I set my duffel in the trunk, carefully, deliberately. giving myself time to decide how to respond. 20 years of operational security protocols screamed at me to deflect, to minimize, to maintain the comfortable fiction that had kept family gatherings manageable. But I was tired of being hidden behind the garage, tired of being pitied, tired of watching Tyler measure his worth in price tags while dismissing mine entirely. "Yes," I said clearly, "Rear Admiral Lower Half, currently commanding Carrier Strike Group 5 out of San Diego. I've held flag rank for 2 years. Blake was still on his phone. "Carrier Strike Group 5, that's the USS Theodore Roosevelt and her battle group, 9 ships. An aircraft carrier, guided missile cruisers, destroyers, Jesus Christ. How many people do you command?" "Approximately 7,000 sailors and Marines. And the asset value? Combined? Roughly $20 billion? Tyler made a sound like all the air had left his body. He sat down hard on the driveway, right in the puddle from his dropped drink. Victoria was staring at me like I'd suddenly sprouted a second head. "You command a carrier strike group. You command the most powerful naval asset in the Pacific Fleet. One of them, yes. And you drive a 2004 Honda Accord." "I do." "Why?" "Because it runs well, I maintain it properly, and driving a luxury vehicle would be inappropriate for someone in my position. Operational security dictates that flag officers avoid conspicuous displays of wealth or status outside of official capacities." Blake let out a laugh, half disbelief, half respect. "You've been sitting here all weekend, letting us talk about our cars and our investment properties, while you command $20 billion in naval assets. I was enjoying my book, mostly. And we compared you to a housekeeper." Victoria did, I noted it. Victoria's face had gone bright red. "Admiral, I'm so sorry. I had no idea." "How could you know? I didn't tell you. And you didn't ask." My mother was crying now, tears running down her face. "Brittany, I don't understand. An admiral? You never said." "I did say. I told you 2 years ago when I made flag rank. You said, 'That's nice, dear,' and changed the subject to talk about Tyler's new car." Tyler was still sitting in the puddle, his expensive linen pants soaking up tomato juice and melting ice. His face had gone through several emotions: shock, disbelief, and now settling into something that looked like shame. "You let me tell you to park behind the garage," he whispered. "I told you to hide your car because I was embarrassed by it, and you're a fucking admiral." "I am." "You command an aircraft carrier." "Yes? And I told you," he couldn't finish the sentence. "You told me my car barely runs. You laughed about it. You've spent 15 years treating me like I'd failed at life because I didn't prioritize wealth the way you do. But why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you ever say?" "Because you never asked, Tyler. You assumed. You decided I'd chosen poorly, that I was struggling, that I was a cautionary tale. And you never bothered to verify those assumptions because they made you feel better about your own choices." More of Tyler's friends had gathered now, all of them staring at me with expressions ranging from respect to mortification. "I looked up your car's benefits," Blake said, still on his phone. "Free gas through military fuel stations, free maintenance through base services, no registration fees, no insurance costs. The military covers all of it for flag officers. You're probably saving $15,000 a year just by driving this car instead of something new. More like $20,000 when you factor in depreciation I'm not paying. You're smarter with money than any of us," Victoria said quietly. "We're all leveraged to hell buying luxury vehicles that depreciate the moment we drive them off the lot. You're driving a paid-off Honda that costs you literally nothing to operate. Plus she makes more than I do," Tyler said dully, "doesn't she?" I could have lied, could have softened the blow. Base pay for an 07 with over 20 years of service is about $170,000, with housing allowances, C-pay, and various other benefits. Total compensation is closer to $220,000. Plus, I've been investing since I was a midshipman at the academy. I live below my means. I've done well." "Jesus," Blake muttered. "She makes more than any of us and drives the oldest car." Because the car doesn't matter, I said patiently. What matters is the mission. What matters is the 7,000 people who depend on me to make good decisions. What matters is maintaining operational readiness for a strategic asset that projects American power across the Pacific. The car is just transportation. My mother had moved to Tyler's side, helping him stand up. His pants were ruined, his pride visibly shattered. "Why didn't you tell us?" she asked again. "All these years. Why didn't you make us understand?" "Because I tried, Mom. I tried for 20 years. I told you about promotions and commands and deployments. And you responded by talking about Tyler's car collection. You made it clear what kind of success you valued, so I stopped trying to explain. But an admiral is still your daughter, still the same person who's been showing up to family gatherings for 2 decades. The rank doesn't change who I am. It just reveals who you've been seeing, or rather, who you haven't been seeing." Tyler had found his voice again. "I'm so sorry. God, Brittany, I'm so fucking sorry. The things I said, the way I treated you, telling you to park behind the garage like I was embarrassing you. I know. You've made that clear for 15 years. I was wrong. About everything. You're not a cautionary tale. He gestured helplessly at the license plate. "You're extraordinary. You've accomplished more than I ever will, and I've been too blind and too selfish to see it." "Yes," I agreed. "You have been." The gathered guests were silent, witnessing a family reckoning they probably wished they weren't part of. But no one left. They just stood there, watching Tyler Utley, successful attorney, owner of a lake house and a Range Rover, confronted with the reality that his sister had been more successful all along, just in ways he'd refused to recognize. "Can we fix this?" my mother asked. "Can we start over, do better?" I thought about it, about the years of dismissal and underestimation, about being compared to housekeepers and told to hide my car, about watching my family celebrate Tyler's wealth while ignoring my service. "I don't know," I said honestly. "That depends on whether you actually want to know who I am or whether you just want to adjust your narrative now that you've learned I'm not the failure you thought I was." "We want to know," Tyler said immediately. "I want to know everything. Your career, your commands, your deployments, all the things I should have been asking about for 20 years. "That's a lot of catching up." "I've got time, I'll make time." He looked at the other guests. "Can everyone just give us a minute? Family stuff." People dispersed, returning to their cars, suddenly very interested in loading their luggage and avoiding eye contact. When we were alone, just me, Tyler, and our mother, Tyler spoke again. "I'm going to ask you one question, and I want the complete answer. No deflecting, no minimizing. Can you do that?" "Depends on the question. Some things are classified." "Fair enough. Here's the question. When you're at work, when you're doing your actual job, what does a typical day look like?" I considered how to answer that. Considered what I could share without violating security protocols. Yesterday morning, I participated in a secure video conference with the 7th Fleet Commander and representatives from the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force. We discussed joint exercises planned for next month. Then I reviewed readiness reports from my cruiser commanders, fuel status, weapons inventory, personnel issues. After lunch, I spent 3 hours in a planning session about strategic positioning in the South China Sea, analyzing Chinese naval movements and determining optimal carrier placement. At 4 p.m., I walked the flight deck of the Theodore Roosevelt, talking to pilots and deck crew about operational challenges. I ate dinner in the wardroom with my department heads, discussing everything from maintenance schedules to morale issues. Then I spent 2 hours reviewing intelligence briefs before bed. Tyler was staring at me. "That's what you do every day?" "More or less. When we're at sea, it's more intense. When we're in port, there's more administrative work. But yes, that's the job." "And I've been asking you, how's work, and accepting, fine, as an answer for 15 years. "Yes. Because I never gave you space to explain more. Never indicated that I wanted to know more." "Correct." He sat back down, this time deliberately, his ruined pants forgotten. "I've been so stupid, so focused on money and things that I couldn't see what you were actually doing. Couldn't see that your choices weren't failures but different priorities. Priorities that don't photograph well for Instagram," I said dryly. "No, but they matter a hell of a lot more than anything I've ever done." "Tyler, let me finish, please." He looked up at me, tears in his eyes now. "I'm proud of myself for making partner, for my salary, for this house. But you command an aircraft carrier. You make decisions that affect national security. You lead thousands of people. And you do it while driving a 20-year-old Honda because you understand that real power isn't about what you own. It's about what you do. My mother was crying again, but quietly now. I'm so sorry, Brittany. We should have been celebrating you. Should have been asking about your work, your life, your achievements. Instead, we made you feel like you had to hide who you are. I didn't have to hide. I corrected. I chose to. Because explaining was exhausting, and operational security gave me a good excuse to stay quiet. But yes, you could have made it easier by actually wanting to know. We want to now, Tyler said, if you'll give us the chance. I looked at my brother, successful, wealthy, privileged, sitting in a puddle of tomato juice in his ruined designer pants, finally seeing me clearly for the first time in 20 years. Okay, I said, we can try. Thank you. But Tyler, next time I visit, I'm parking my Honda right in front of the house, because I'm not hiding anymore. He laughed. A genuine laugh this time, not performative or dismissive. Deal, and I'll take a picture of it for Instagram. Show everyone that my sister, the Admiral, has her priorities straight. That's a start. I drove back to San Diego in my 2004 Honda Accord, license plate proudly displaying my flag officer status, thinking about the weekend that had just unfolded. The reveal hadn't been planned. I hadn't orchestrated some grand exposure. It had happened by accident, a friend noticing a license plate, asking questions, connecting dots. But maybe that was better. Maybe that made it real in a way that a planned confrontation never could have been. My phone rang through the ancient speakers. Wells again? Admiral? Just confirming tomorrow's schedule? Brief at 0900, then a lunch meeting with the maintenance commander, then your meeting with the Secretary of the Navy's staff at 1400. Confirmed. I'll be there. How was the family gathering? Illuminating. That sounds ominous. They found out about my rank, entirely by accident. Blake, one of Tyler's friends, recognized my military exempt plates. Wells laughed. Okay, that must have been something. Tyler dropped his drink, literally. Just dropped it and sat down in the puddle. I wish I'd been there. It was a moment, the kind of moment where years of assumptions collapse all at once. Are you okay? I thought about the question, about Tyler's apology and my mother's tears, about being seen, finally, after decades of invisibility. Yeah, I said, I think I am. It's not fixed. We've got a lot of work to do to rebuild trust and understanding, but at least now we're starting from honesty instead of assumption. That's something. That's everything, actually. I drove on, the Honda purring reliably beneath me, carrying me back to the life I'd built, the one where I commanded carriers and coordinated with foreign navies and made decisions that mattered. The life my family was only now beginning to understand I'd been living all along. The life I'd always been proud of, regardless of whether anyone else saw it. And now, finally, they could see it too. Behind the garage, where I'd been parked by people who thought expensive things mattered more than important work. But not anymore. Now I was visible, recognized, seen. And that ancient Honda with its military exempt plates carried me forward into a future where my family finally knew who I was. The car didn't matter. It never had. But the journey it had taken to help them understand that mattered more than any Range Rover ever could.